So about a week ago, I talked about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films, all three of them in preparation for No Way Home. 2 weeks from No Way Home's release. Now we're 1 week from No Way Home's release, and I've got two more films to talk about. And I have two Blu-rays of The Amazing Spider-Man for some reason. I have the Blu-ray and the 3D. But yeah, and then just one of the Amazing Spider-Man 2. But anyway, yeah. So, since I talked about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, it's only fair I talk about Marc Webb's The Amazing Spider-Man movies. So, let's get into these, starting with The Amazing Spider-Man 1. So yeah, The Amazing Spider-Man is a really good movie in my opinion. It's probably my favorite Spider-Man adaptation in live action. I love Andrew Garfield's performance here. I love his performance. I think it works really well with the character. And I think he's doing a great job here. You can tell he's passionate about the role. And on top of that, I think Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy is really good here. I think she does really well in this movie. Gwen Stacy is a really fun love interest in this movie. But yeah, so two really good leads. So it's a really high start. And do I think the plot works? Yeah, I'd say this one works pretty well. We start off with Peter just being this average guy. He's a little bit less of a nerd in the general sense than he is in the Sam Raimi films or later in the MCU John Watts films. But he's still got that quality to him. Somewhat. He's still really smart and he's still focused on these things a lot of times. But he has a skateboard, so a lot of people just think that makes him automatically cool, which isn't necessarily how it works. But yeah. So you start off with him being fairly normal and you get all the stuff with him getting bit by the spider, which does lead to a dumb point, but that's in the second movie. We're not talking about the second one right now. We're talking about the first one. But yes, then he gets bit by the spider, and you have all this stuff happen. And simultaneously, Kurt Connor's the main villain of the movie. He's trying to fix his arm, so he has the lizard injection or whatever, and keeps turning into lizard and stuff, which builds up the main villain of the movie. So, you know, it's not a super complicated plot by any means. It is a fairly simplistic plot, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to have a simple movie every once in a while. Because, yeah, it's not a super complicated movie. It's just got the origin of Spider-Man. That's the main thing it's trying to set up and accomplish, is a more grounded take on the origin story of Spider-Man, which I think it does really well. I think it plays to its strengths really well. I think it knows that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are both really good actors, so it puts them in these roles where they're going to work, and it puts them in these situations with a script that works just well enough that they can work off it really well. And part of it's because that's more in the second film, though, I believe. That Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, I believe, were dating during the second one. I don't know if they were during this one, but they have really good chemistry in this movie. Really, really good chemistry, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy how they interact off each other. And then Gwen Stacy's dad, Captain Stacy, I think works really well and has a solid point in this movie. It makes sense him being here because he continues the plot further and everything. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, it is a more grounded take. Some people aren't gonna like that because they think Spider-Man should be more fun and stuff like he was in the Sam Raimi films. But I think it works pretty well here because they don't necessarily try to make these characters super grounded. They do realize these characters are not super realistic. They just try to make the way they interact with other people realistic. And I really like that. I really like how they did that. I found that really fun. And yeah, it's a really solid movie. It's my favorite, probably, interpretation of Spider-Man. I do think later Homecoming works a little better as a film. I think it is a little better made as a film. And it has a couple more solid moments, but The Amazing Spider-Man is probably my favorite Spider-Man film. And there's the scene where he saves the kid in the hanging car or whatever, which is probably the best scene in any Spider-Man film. The best Spider-Man scene. Maybe second one, Homecoming, I'll talk about in that video whenever I make it, hopefully next week. But yeah, The Amazing Spider-Man is a really solid film. I really, really enjoy it. So, otherwise we got another one to talk about, which is not as good, which is The Amazing Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a really weird movie. It is really complicated, to say the least. It has a lot going on. It rivals Spider-Man 3 in that aspect. And I don't think it works out overall. Overall, this movie is too bloated, and it is too forced. And a lot of it just doesn't work on its own anyway. So to start off, we have some positives still. Peter and Gwen, played by Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, still are doing really good jobs on their own and with their chemistry together, which, yes, when they were shooting this one, they were dating. I know that for a fact. So that does play a part in it. But I don't care, it's still really good acting. Nonetheless, I think they still did a really good job. Both of them. Both of them do really good in this movie. And I don't think anyone here is doing a specifically bad job besides maybe Dane DeHaan. Although part of that's because James Franco's insane performance as Harry Osborn does lead to this one looking worse in comparison, instead of if it was just on its own. That is a fair point. But a lot of the stuff here doesn't work. There are too many plot lines. The plot line with Peter's parents is really dumb and takes up too much time. That should have been cut. It is so dumb that Peter is Spider-Man because it is tied to DNA. It is really stupid. I think you could have cut Electro or Harry one. Both of them didn't need to be here. There could have just been one or the other. Rhino, I don't care, because Rhino plays a part in it for, the opening scene and the ending scene. Yeah, that changes so much of the base runtime. Then we would have just had another generic villain at the beginning of the movie, because I think the opening scene works pretty, or the first scene with Spider-Man in it works pretty well, since there's a stupid spy scene with his parents, which also ties into the whole plot line with his parents, which, like I said, is dumb and doesn't need to be here. But yeah, I think they should have cut one of the villains. Probably Green Goblin. I think Electro should have been the main and only villain in this film. He should have been the main villain, and they should have changed some of his arc. And they also should have changed the way he looked, because he looks so dumb. I'm glad they're changing that in No Way Home. He looks so stupid in this movie. It is unbelievable. But yeah, cut Green Goblin. I think that would have worked. But as it stands, they're both there. They both take up a bunch of runtime for this movie too, and split it up. And I think, as much as I liked their relationship in this movie, Peter and Gwen splitting up and getting back together on and off the entire movie also did not need to be there. It was too forced. It took up too much runtime. This is almost a 2.5-hour movie, and it still feels like there's too much going on. Spider-Man 3 was that way too. I don't understand how they can fail this hard when they're so long. But yeah, I think their relationship should have either stayed one way or another until the end. But this movie is so bloated. It's just a struggle to get through. There's so much going on, but it is just passable enough to get through because there are so many dumb moments. In a lot of ways, it rivals Spider-Man 3 with how goofy some of this stuff is and how little sense it makes. But yeah, and in fairness for this movie also, there are a couple of scenes here that do work really well. I think Gwen's death near the end of the movie is built up just well enough to really evoke emotion. Like I said, the first scene with Spider-Man I thought worked really well, besides him being an absolute buffoon and acting like a complete bumbling idiot. I do not like that part of it, but if you just think of it as a general starting scene, it works fine. He is bantering a little too much with the bad guy, though, and letting too many people die for it to truly work. And their relationship works well. The acting here is all solid. There's a couple of other scenes that work pretty well. But yeah, there's a lot of dumb stuff in this movie that really doesn't work. And overall, I think it's just barely passable. It's like a 5 out of 10. A very, very median 5 out of 10. And yeah, that's what I'm going to give it. It's a 5 out of 10. In comparison to the first one's 9. That's quite a bit lower. But yeah, that's the Amazing Spider-Man films. I really like the first one. Don't care for the second one. Probably one of the weakest Spider-Man films. Not the worst. We'll talk about the worst one some other day. It doesn't even have Spider-Man in it. But yeah, the Amazing Spider-Man movies are an okay duology that is really dragged down by the second one, as to be expected if you've seen the second one. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this video, I think. So yeah, see you guys later. Peace out.